So do you believe in aliens? I believe in aliens. We believe in aliens.
Yep.
That means we can all be friends now. That's all you need to do.
If you don't believe in aliens, you could just click on through. Because we're not here to convince you about that.
I kind of think that way in my life now. It's kind of like my test of friendship when I meet someone. So do you believe in aliens? Like that should be the top question right off the bat now.
Question number one.
Yeah. Because none of us have time to waste with
We don't
each
have
other.
time.
If I believe in aliens and you don't waste your time with me. And then I'll repeat the same courtesy to you.
You're right.
Right?
Exactly. I love this philosophy.
I think that was one of the things that requirements for when we got married.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It is. And now the swipe culture, right? So this is great. Perfect.
Well, this is something, like we're going to watch a video today, guys.
Yeah.
That for me, and I think you will feel the same when you watch it, is one of the most sincere, authentic UFO testimonial eyewitness videos that I've ever seen in my life. And I have been watching these videos since 1726, okay? When I was 200 years old. And
Because you're a vampire? But anyway.
No, I'm a vampire hunter, actually. I'm a vampire healer.
Okay.
All right. So let's say this, that you don't believe in UFOs, but someone whose sincerity and authenticity that you're reading like a book, when you're examining.
Like very carefully.
Yeah, scrutinizing. I have seen so many that are authentic of testimonials. I myself have had several sightings myself. We filmed UFOs flying above us. Check out my Instagram, go to my reels and see the UFO that she filmed in Mount Shasta.
Yeah. I used to have a lot of footage over the years, and I don't know, it got lost here and there.
Yeah.
But
it was abducted.
We have seen so many.
So what did you think when I first showed you this video?
It was surreal in the first few minutes. Like I couldn't believe what she was saying, and then as I started listening to her deeper, I was like, wow, this actually really happened to this person.
Right.
And it was quite astonishing, actually.
So 1952, 52 or 54?
54.
54, Staffordshire, England. This woman tells a story of what happened to her and her boys while she was in her house.
Yeah.
1952, guys. Okay.
So imagine the mindset back then. And there was an innocence. You can see she's kind of in the country. There's a whole thing going on. So it's more believable almost.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Than today, in today's day and age.
Right. Like nowadays you see someone filming with their camera. They're like, oh shit, aliens, And then you're like, wait, is that a reflection on the window of something behind you?
You don't even know if that's like an edit and whatnot. But back in this time, you guys have to see for yourself. So
shall we wait any longer?
No,
we're not even going to talk during this,
We're not going to talk. It's 7 minutes. We're going to let you.
I'm doing like this because I just want to give this woman so much respect for the heart that she shows and the way that she talks about it. And just watch all the nuances. You know that this happened when you see it. So let's drop in.
Okay.
Staffordshire's had a whole crop of flying saucers. Spots in the sky, lights in the sky, strange things. But the strangest of all was seen one day over this cottage. Mr. and Mrs. Rustenberg were living there, quietly, out in the country. And, well, you just tell me what you saw.
Well, this was one ordinary day. I was waiting for my husband to come home from work, and my two sons went to Seifert to school, and I was getting changed, and I heard this terrific noise. It was just like a giant cauldron of water being poured onto a fire, a shh sort of noise, And my first reaction was, oh, the children. I thought maybe a plane was crashing or something like that. And I slipped my jumper on and went outside to find my two sons lying flat on the ground in the garden in front of the house, shouting, "Mummy, Mummy, there's a flying saucer." Well, naturally, I just said, "Come on, don't be stupid. Come in the house." But felt sort of a strange sensation. Wended my way up the side of the house to where we had a pump where we used to get all our water from, and automatically looked up to see this, all I can describe, this huge Mexican hat. It was stationary, this thing, and it was bright silver in color, and it had a dome. It was tilted to sort of I could see the occupants in it.
You saw people in it?
I saw people in it. There were 2 people in there. These people were beautiful people. That's the only way I can describe them. They had long golden hair, like a page boy bob, just like the old kings. You used to see photographs of the old kings. And the colour of the hair was golden. Now, I was really...
What were they dressed in?
They had a sort of a polo neck jumper affair, like a ski top suit, in pale blue. Now, these people weren't sat behind, one behind the other. They were sat together, but this, whatever it was tilted so that I could see them and they could see me.
Were you looking at them through windows, through portholes? Or
no, not portholes. It was just sort of like a cockpit, I suppose, that had this perspex or glass or whatever it was. They could see me anyway, and I could see them. And they had beautiful faces. I shall never forget their faces as long as I live. Their foreheads seemed to be a bit larger than, you know, the bottom of their faces as normal people you would expect to see. But maybe this was just whatever they had round their heads, which was like a transparent fishbowl. And they just looked, and I was absolutely paralytic with fear. I couldn't move, although my mind was ticking over. And they looked so sympathetic that I was just mesmerized for what seemed to be, ages, but it could have only been seconds. And I turned to sort of look down at the boys, was unaware that they were with me because I was so absorbed. And the next thing, I looked up and it was gone.
How low had it been?
It had been the height, I couldn't tell you. But the house that you've seen, it was just on top of the roof. It was hovering on top of the roof.
How big was it compared with the size of the house?
It swallowed the whole circumference of the roof. I couldn't see, the roof was completely blotted out. The chimneys I couldn't see. All I could see was this massive object that I described as like a Mexican hat without the bubbles.
And then it flew away sideways or upwards?
No, I didn't see. I just looked up and it had gone. But I assume it went straight up, because for a short while after in the sky I looked around and I said to my 2 boys, "Where can you see anything? Can you see anything?" And they said, "There it is, Mum," and they pointed up, and I watched it. It was just like a little cotton meal in the sky, and it circled us 3 times. It went round 3 times, and then it just shut off, and that was it. When I started to analyze myself afterwards, I feared that I might have had an hallucination, but then I knew I hadn't had, because my sons were so sure about what they'd seen and what I'd seen. And it went through my mind that it was a secret weapon from Russia, and then I thought, well, it can't be that, because if they had something like that, they wouldn't need to fear anybody or anything.
Were you scared by it? Did you run indoors?
Oh, I was petrified. I couldn't move. I couldn't move a muscle. I was paralyzed with fear. But now I wouldn't be. Because now, when I look back, you know, I think, what an amazing thing to have happened, and for me to have seen it.
And when your husband came home, where were you?
Well, when my husband came home from the office, I was locked in the house with my children, under a big kitchen table that we were using.
Under the table?
Under the table, yes. It's funny now when I look back, you know, it sounds absolutely ridiculous, but this is the truth. This happened. And that's it. We were ridiculed. It was very embarrassing at the time, and people, they possibly thought, oh, she's a nutter. But, you know, who cares? This is something that happened to me, and I'm a practically minded person, and that's it.
Wow.
Where do we begin?
Well, you guys can start commenting.
Yeah, just start if you're not already.
Oh my gosh. I really felt that.
She chokes me up. I just want to sit with her and hold her hand.
Yeah.
I want to tell her that I believe her 1,000%. I want to share with her what I get psychically about this.
Yeah.
I'm kind of speechless, and I've seen the video several times, but I catch something new every time.
Yeah, me too.
What did you catch new this time?
I got the feeling that there was an abduction and they were returning the sons, and there could have been a time.
I didn't even think of that.
I know. This is the first time I actually felt that, because why were the sons laying on the floor, flat on their back in the garden? Unless they decided that's the best way to view.
See them.
But at the same time, from what I know about UFO abduction cases, there's always a reason why a ship will be
above the house
at that level.
Okay. You just blew me away with that one.
Yeah.
Okay. You know what I loved when he said, what were they wearing? She goes, it was a pearl neck jumper affair, I suppose. A pearl necked jumper affair, and of a light blue color. Don't you just love the English? I just love the way their command of the language.
I got the feeling they were Palladian, and I think you agree with that.
100% Palladian, guys. The accounts of Palladian encounters have been that they look like that. They have the golden hair, page boy type of haircuts. They have worn those outfits. Now, this is 1952. No one was reporting these kinds of encounters in 1952 with such detail.
54, yeah.
54, excuse me. And this is, by the way, only 6 years, after the Roswell crash.
Right.
Okay, so we are not talking about modern UFO history the way we have all seen on TikTok and social media, blah, 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 on television. This is back then. And she said everyone thought we were nutters, crazy. Of course they thought that. People think up until a few years ago, people thought you were crazy even now.
Yeah.
To say that you saw it like this. I love that she said it was a Mexican hat.
Yeah. The
sombrero.
And it was like a clear top.
Okay, so now the way she was describing it was that there's the house, right? So I don't know how to describe it. Let's say this is the house. Ooh, I love this magical box. Okay, so here's the house, right? And she's here with the boys. So the UFO comes. What can be the UFO? Maybe this. Look at that. There's the UFO. And she said it was bigger than the roof of the house and tilted itself.
Oh, so they can get a view.
Can you imagine the size? Now, it's a small English country house, right? How big could it be? 1,000, 1,200 square feet? Think about how big that UFO was over with the cockpit. And there it is, tilting down like this.
So to have that much interest for those extraterrestrials or that species or our future selves, brothers and sisters, to have that much interest to tilt the UFO like that.
That was an absolute invitation, and I believe completely noble, good intentions to say, I think that they picked up on her because of her sincerity, her innocence, her innocent mind and spirit, and no knowledge and no interest in UFOs. And they knew exactly what they were doing. I think that they had love for the boys. We know as channelers that the Palladian energy is very welcoming and supportive of us as human beings. And so, of course, our cat comes every time we talk about these things.
Podcast time.
Come on up.
Come on. You want to come on my lap? She wants your lap.
Yeah.
You on my lap?
Sorry, guys. This is how it always happens, as you know, if you've been watching our show. Okay, so I feel this was absolutely intentional, clearly because of the position of the craft.
Right.
The way she said it, I could see them and they could see me. She said it twice. And this is what was staying in her, that in her mind, was that these beings want me to see them.
Yeah.
Think about from where her background.
Well, she was probably, the petrified, mixed with utter curiosity, mixed with shock. She was just probably paralyzed, just staring.
Yeah.
Can't believe what she's seeing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's bigger than the roof. It's tilted down.
Yeah.
There's a glass cockpit.
She couldn't see the roof or the chimney, so that means it was blocking.
It was blocking. It was in front.
It's incredible.
So would that be 50 feet across?
Yeah, at least.
Okay.
Yeah.
The dome, she said, it was a Mexican hat with a dome clear.
Right.
Then she said they had fish bowls around their head.
Yeah, I thought about that, and I have seen some channel descriptions and pictures of that.
Yes.
And I'm not seeing it like round, like a fishbowl.
Yeah.
I think what she means is like it's a very probably clear device that's very tight to the head. And I think that has something to do with the oxygen levels, like to breathe.
But maybe it is a clear bowl. Like, why we kind of think maybe it wasn't exactly a fishbowl thing?
Yeah.
Because we grew up with those in cartoons.
Right.
The cartoons from notice it was all started around the 60s.
Right.
60s, and from onwards, they would sometimes make an alien with a bowl around their head.
Right.
But come on, this is probably because the
oxygen,
powers
right?
that
Like they have
the powers that be know this.
Oh.
And so they are kind of doing the dissemination of this information slowly through popular culture, so that the humanity gets used to the ideas of aliens over time. So show them that it's a saucer, show them that it's gray creatures with big eyes. And over the years, the average human being on Earth the average Earthling has been acclimatized,
right,
desensitized,
right,
to this. So I think that these Palladians do have a clear, it may not be glass,
right,
obviously, but it's probably something else.
Right.
Who knows? Maybe it's an air bubble that she's seeing that they are breathing inside of.
Yeah, definitely. That's what's happening. I mean, what's crazy is that there are UFOs cloaked and UAPs, mostly alien origin, not government origin, that are cloaked and are around this planet at all times.
Yes.
Thousands and thousands since the beginning of time.
Yes.
And have been with us.
Yes.
And have been watching us. And then obviously there's all the dramas that are playing out between the species and all the other things, but we won't get into that because that's...
Well, we know they cloak themselves because, look, military, pilots, Navy, right?
Yeah.
So you have the Navy, you have the Air Force. You have regular commercial pilots who have seen visual contact with giant discs flying in the air or hovering, and the air traffic control says, well, there's nothing on our radar. So they are able to cloak themselves, and many times they do show up on radar. But a visual contact, very clear.
By the way, we did not introduce ourselves.
You need no introduction. You're the amazing, magical, mystical Lady O. I'm Riz the Wiz, psychic medium and trance channel.
And I'm Lady O. I'm an intuitive empath.
And this is Moomy.
Our healer cat. She's retired.
She's retired. She is retired.
Yeah, she is retired. Yeah, I mean, this show is not about this. And on another channel, I share more stories about my personal encounters. But I have experiences myself. I've had psychic surgeries. I've seen little grays. I've had, I'm not surprised considering who I live with, being that you are a tower of psychic power. So your beam goes very high. And so I could imagine the interest. So yeah, this whole topic is like heavy.
Well,
and I know that you know a lot of information about
this is
UFOs,
the most important. This is the single most important topic in the history of planet Earth.
It is.
Okay? We have our social concerns, poverty, disease, violence, war, economics. Yes, those are day to day. But overall, it's been amongst humanity, are we or are we not alone out here?
Right.
Are we just on this spinning ball in the middle of this blackness, this void, that we're a tiny speck? When they see those big pictures of the Hubble telescopes, this is a picture of the entire galaxy. And we're this speck, and they show this picture this big of a gazillion specks, right? And go, that's our solar system there. We start to feel so insignificant, a lot of people automatically. I personally look at those images and go, there's probably a billion other civilizations out there.
Yeah.
We have references to sky people in indigenous culture, from the Aborigines to what's referenced in ancient Egyptian culture, African culture, Indian culture. You look back at the Vedic history in India, there's some people who speculate that the gods themselves, from Krishna and all of these gods, were part of the deep fabric of Indian culture. That maybe they were extraterrestrials, that the Vimanas, which are referenced in these scriptures, were actually UFO light ships that were having an interplanetary, intergalactic, interdimensional war. So this has been around for thousands and thousands of years. We are still trying to get it passed just to the government to admit that there are things flying around that pilots have seen and they're not crazy. it's almost outrageous. Not almost. It's beyond outrageous. To me personally, it's beyond outrageous.
Right.
That people aren't talking about this.
So do you think that there's a desensitization happening? Because I'm starting to notice that people get kind of a glossy look over their eyes, like they've heard too much, seen too much. It's been in the media.
Well, it's interesting. The desensitization was meant to help us.
Right.
Which was after the 1947 UFO crash in Roswell, New Mexico, which absolutely happened. There were dead bodies there. One alien was alive, stayed alive for several years. Look it up, guys. This is all part of the real Roswell history. Mm-hmm. It was not a weather balloon. The craft was recovered. There actually was another crash, by the way, that they discovered a couple of years later.
Right.
Okay. So that extraterrestrial entity, which they named EBE, which stood for Extra Biological Entity. That's where the name ET came from, the movie ET, which was part of the desensitization which was Close Encounters of the Third Kind,
right.
ET the Extraterrestrial, both directed and written by you-know-who. So that was used so that people would then say, oh, that's what spaceships look like. Oh, aliens are this short, and they look like that, and they fly like this. And so this began this desensitization of when they were always planning to have disclosure.
Right.
So the forces that be, the hidden forces that be, were like, eventually we're going to have to tell the people. Mm-hmm. So they started trickling money into Hollywood productions and things. That's what they say. Mm-hmm. And we're discovering it. There's a great book by Colonel Philip Corso, Corso, who wrote a book called The Day After Roswell.
Right. It's a famous book.
This is a seminal book. You guys have to read this book. Mm-hmm. So he was a colonel in the Army, highly decorated, highly respected. About a few years before he died, he knew his time was ending on Earth. He wrote this book. He had kept all of these secrets close to his chest. Mm-hmm. He names names. He puts dates, places, case numbers. He was there where he helped to back engineer the technology that was reverse engineer the technology that was recovered from the craft at Roswell. Mm-hmm. And he claimed in the book, this is where certain technologies from infrared technology, right. Being able to see in the dark. Mm-hmm. Also,
DSL, I think.
No, it was fiber optics. You're correct. Mm-hmm. And the other was the
plasma TV, plasma screens. The liquid
you
plasma.
Got that. I forgot that, actually, that one. No, why am I blanking right here? This is like you could wake me up at 4 a.m. and ask me about this.
Happens.
Okay, sometimes it happens. So those technologies, okay, certain kinds of microchips, circuit boards, these were on the ships.
Right.
They also discovered on those ships that these ships were designed to be piloted and navigated, controlled by the emotions of the pilots.
So they programmed the actual materials to be sensitive to the emotions of the pilots. So could you imagine?
Or that the material itself on their planet does respond to a living, sentient being's emotional state.
Right. And I think that, like, if we go 10,000 years into our future, and with the technology that we're building right now,
absolutely,
you can start to program our AIs in the future to be responsive and respond to our emotions.
Because emotions are a frequency.
But the more sensitive that material becomes, the more sensitive the technology becomes, then you can see where this material was created.
The more advanced the technology is based on how sensitive the technology is.
Right.
So imagine if we now commonly begin to accept, generally speaking, that emotions are vibrations, right? There's a vibrational frequency to things, and we develop a technology that can literally feel the difference, the variances in frequency and vibration, then, of course, assigned a number this is the value of that frequency. Mm-hmm. Then the science continues using that same formula. Then you develop a material that can do that. Now, mind you, we go, how can you develop things? How can you think of things you've never thought of?
So tell us
about, that's mind-blowing, because you go, well, who could have ever thought of the iPhone 200 years ago?
Right. So tell us about, I forget his name now, not Corso, but he was the one that came in after him. That he was a young guy in his 20s, very famous. He doesn't like to talk about it anymore, but he went in and they wanted him to reverse engineer
Bob Lazar. Okay, so Bob Lazar has initially...
What an extraordinary human being.
Bob Lazar just...
Yeah.
We're not worthy.
Like
okay.
Guru level.
In the 80s, there was George Knapp in Nevada, who was an investigative journalist, had gotten I would say a testimonial from a person who didn't identify himself. It turned out to be Bob Lazar. Everybody kind of knows about him. Look him up. Lazar, Lazar. There's documentaries on him now. Mm-hmm. And he was basically saying, I was recruited to reverse engineer technology at Groom Lake, Nevada, at a secret location for the military. Mm-hmm. And he began saying that we have in our possession extraterrestrial vehicles, some of them fully intact, and some of them now have been reverse engineered, and our own pilots are learning to fly them. Mm-hmm. People thought he was crazy, except for, of course, yours truly, who did not think so. I was in high school when I read about this. But in general, people thought he was crazy and denied it, and he basically proved that he did work there, and he had a pay stub still.
And he brought several of his friends one time, and they got in trouble. I remember they were hiding on the outskirts.
He took John Lear. Now, John Lear will blow your mind. You guys want to travel interdimensionally just by listening to somebody? Yeah. Go find interviews with John Lear. His dad is the founder, creator of the Lear jet. Mm-hmm. Okay? John Lear held the highest numbers. He's now passed on. Mm-hmm. I hope, John, that you're on the other side and finally get to see and know the truth, my friend.
Right.
Send me some information so I can channel it for you.
Right.
John Lear, I just have to take a moment because there are many things that John Lear said that some people will say, that guy is absolutely batshit crazy. Okay. Right. That's what they said about a lot of people that knew truth. Okay. Mm-hmm. Until you find out that it is true. So I will say this about certain things that John said were because of his direct knowledge being in the aerospace field. Mm-hmm. He held the most records almost of any pilot was John Lear. So we're not talking about just a guy whose dad was famous. Look up the record holding that John Lear has. Mm-hmm. John Lear could tell you how any plane works. Mm-hmm. He could go down to the engine he could identify a plane by the sound without looking up and tell you, oh, I know what's flying above me. Mm-hmm. So he had direct access in the inroads of all of this information that had to do with, of course, not just secret technologies that were legitimately used by the military to develop technologies that were for our benefit and protection of the country, but also special projects, which were for the same reason, but then these deep underground black projects, which we now have discovered was called ATIP. New York Times did an article in 2017 that they broke the story that secretly our government has been spending $100 million every year on investigating what they now call UAPs, used to be called UFOs. Mm-hmm. UFOs were unidentified flying objects. UAPs are unidentified aerial phenomenon. Mm-hmm. So, what a big story. It's the New York Times. It's got to be now. It's legit because it's the New York Times. Mm-hmm. Top two newspapers in America, Washington Post and the New York Times. Right. But the fact that they said, we see that the government has admitted to this, that they have been researching UFOs. In the 70s and 60s, we had something called Project Blue Book, which was an organization that they found to investigate UFO sightings, but was really designed to be a cover to deny all of it. Mm-hmm. And there was a gentleman by the name of J. Allen Hynek. Now, Mr. Hynek was sent around to all of these places to interview these witnesses. And he was told, pretty much in those exact words, that just debunk all of this. Mm-hmm. But he was a hardcore scientist, and he had gone in to debunk. He was the one who made famous the term swamp gas. Have you heard of that?
Yes, of course. Okay.
And so they would say, it was just swamp gas happens when the swamps are emanating these certain gases, and it turns into this bioluminescence. Yeah. And they light up, and then you'll see a ball here, and then it happens over here on the swamp, and it looks like, because this flashed off, that it moved over here. And they're like, but there's no swamps in a lot of these places.
Not only that, there was thousands of witnesses.
Yeah, always. Yeah. If not,
and there's like the Arizona lights, like there's.
Oh, yeah. You want to jump there?
Thousands of people have, right?
Let's talk about that. Yeah, but you're talking about the desensitization on that topic. Desensitization. Got it.
Desensitization.
So Close Encounters was the same thing.
Right.
All right. So the alien lived at Roswell, ended up dying a few years later. Let's go back. Let's take it slow, guys.
Mm-hmm.
EBE, extra biological entity, was the basis for the film E.T., which came out in 1980. This happened in 1947. That alien that survived the Roswell crash lived there for several years. Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, if you want to be specific. And there is a series of transcripts that Matilda McElroy was the nurse at the Roswell Air Force Base who was the only person that the alien EBE would talk to telepathically. Now think about it.
And everybody tried to talk to this alien, and the alien would not speak.
Chaos at Roswell Air Force Base the night of July 7th, 1947, in the middle of nowhere, right? Actually, by the way, did you know that's where the atomic bomb, the plane that dropped the atomic bomb,
Wow, I didn't know
is
that.
from there.
Okay.
Now, there's a whole other connection about that the UFOs are interested in our nuclear
Right, of course.
capabilities.
Right.
So, of course, they were kind of observing what's going on around these nuclear sites, which
And
Roswell
they crashed
was.
because there was some like gravitational and
Lightning
magnetic-
storm.
Yeah. Oh, is it?
It was a lightning storm.
Okay.
So the lightning storm it was, they're not faster than lightning, apparently. Not at that moment. What happens with those ships, just on a side note, the reason why they can travel and bend time and space is due to their technology of being able to do that. But when they get to Earth's atmosphere, the ships don't actually operate the same way. So they tend to
I think they project out it's like a magnetic field that reverse. It's almost like a cloaking in the way that they move. I forget how it's like a buffer.
So they're creating the way the ships work.
Right. I
is
can't
that
remember how to
and
describe
Bob Lazar, by the way, is the guy who reverse engineered and discovered some of this information when he was working at the Groom Lake facility in Nevada. Now Bob Lazar is on so many podcasts and interviews. He actually was on Joe Rogan as well. So he said that the ships do not work really on burning fuel.
Right.
What they do is that they create an atmosphere around the ship, which is a disturbance between the ship and the environment it's in.
Right.
And basically creating an aura, you might say. And it travels on that. So it's able to kind of locate a point in physical distance ahead of it. And due to its understandings of physics much more advanced than ours, it's able to just get there.
Right.
Okay? It's not about it travels at the faster than the speed of light because it has a propulsion system that is shooting fire out of its rear, which is basically all our propulsion systems on planet Earth are that philosophy. Blow fire out the back and go forward. Very primitive technology as far as I'm concerned. Number one, it pollutes the environment. Number two, how are you going to steer that? The way that these ships are able to go without disturbing the occupants is that the ship is not even in your environment technically. It's created its own.
Yeah.
So it's making hard right 90-degree turns. It's going 5,000 miles an hour, stopping on a dime and going left. Where the people inside, a human being, would just disintegrate. Not at all.
Yeah. I mean, that's a whole nother rabbit hole to go down that there's...
Well, this is Alice in Wonderland, and you're Alice, baby, wearing what you're wearing.
There's been stories of I remember recently we were hearing about somebody who went into a UFO and they were looking around in it, and it was a small UFO, but then inside was 10 times, 50 times the size. Say more about that.
So there's a term for this. And I don't quote me on the term because it was the first time I had heard this term, and the term blew my mind so much that I can't remember the term. It had something to do with like spatial dissonance or something, where basically imagine going into something that looks like it's just 30 feet across and 15 feet high, and you go in and you step into the ship and it's big as a football field. That's what happened with this one ship that they have recovered.
Do you remember who it was that they asked to come? I can't
I'll
remember
remember.
how
I'll remember.
he was invited, but it was somebody who went in. But he said, and he was interviewed, but he came in and out of the ship because he was so disoriented and so confused, and it threw off all his spatial...
His equilibrium was thrown.
Because he comes out and he sees the dimensions and size of the ship very clearly.
Yeah.
Then he walks in and it's not that size.
Yeah, so
It's
imagine you're walking
10
into your
times bigger.
house and you end up walking into the Staples Center.
Yeah, exactly.
Or like a basketball court.
Exactly. And he said it really disturbed and distorted his view of reality. And
in my wildest imagination, right here and right now, knowing what I know as a trance channel and a medium, even that is mind-boggling to me. It's how you're able to do that.
So that nurse, going back to the nurse who interviewed...
Matilda McElroy.
And she interviewed it's a Eben, correct?
So they started calling the EBE an Eben. So he's an EBE. So
and it was a female.
Yes. So here's what happened. Let's all slow down, everyone, because there's a lot going on here. Matilda McElroy is the nurse. On July 7th, 1947, was working at the Roswell Air Force Base. 59th Bomber Squad, whatever. Okay. They recover the ship. They bring the dead bodies. They bring the live alien. They bring in the medical room. There's chaos. There's security guards at the base. There's just chaos on the base. She's like being rushed from room to room. She doesn't know what's going on. She goes into the room and she's, first of all, just aghast at what she sees. She cannot believe there's an alien sitting.
Where he is coming from is declassified information.
Yes, you can find this, okay? And she has a moment where she sees the alien. There's doctors around. There's military men. And in that moment, she said it became like slow motion, where she looked at the alien and the alien telepathically communicated its emotions to her.
Can you believe that?
And she understood in thought form, not in English. Somehow the thought form was translated. Now, I understand this because as a medium, when I channel the spirit guides or when I get a message from someone who crossed over, even if it's a person who never even spoke English, let's say they're someone's Russian grandmother, I have gotten messages. Now, someone will say, how can you get a message from someone who never spoke English? Here's how. It's kind of transferred. It's thought transference. So it's like the thought, let's say...
I call them thought bubbles.
Yes, you do. So let's say that the grandmother...
Because they come in complete thoughts.
Yeah.
And that's how I get messages as well.
Exactly. So
it drops in. It's like an email that comes in. You open the email, then you read
like a zip file.
Yeah,
yes.
like a zip file.
Exactly. So she got that telepathic communication from the alien. Long story short, the authorities, the military men, the suits all realized that it was talking to her.
Yeah, they couldn't believe that was happening.
So they were like, this is the only...
And they didn't trust it at first, and they tested it.
They tested it.
They removed the nurse many times. They tried to take over. The Eben just stopped talking.
Yeah, meaning not moving,
Telepathy, yeah.
Not doing anything.
Right.
And every time she came to the room, she would say, it needs this, it needs that.
Right.
So they set it up where they would have her mentally ask questions. They filmed it, apparently. And then she would repeat the answers and they would transcribe it. And they would give her the transcriptions also because she had to know the next day what she's going to ask in these series of interviews. God bless you, Matilda McElroy, who's also now on the other side. She made it out of that Air Force base with a copy of the transcript. You can find it
in her purse or somewhere in her body.
Yes, in her body,
which was
like under her blouse or something.
Intervention that she did that.
Yep, that was
and you can find these transcripts online. People have there's one really popular.
It's called Alien Interview, guys.
And there's somebody who took the time and read them.
Well, what happened? Oh, right.
I love that. You just sit there and listen to the whole thing. He read the whole entire thing. It was very long.
So the way that Alien Interview book happened is that Matilda McElroy had moved. By the way, they transferred her right after that. They transferred her out of Roswell Air Force Base. No one ever knew where she went. She was only 20 years old. Imagine a 20-year-old girl going through this.
Yeah, she said it was...
The alien fully complied. By the way, the alien ended up learning English.
And also...
That was put into E.T., by the way, the movie E.T. It was put into... Remember the speak and spell that E.T. used? And E.T. said E.T. phone home
Right.
because he learned English. That is taken directly from the sessions of Matilda McElroy with the EBE at Roswell Air Force Base in 1947. They decided through the mental telepathy conversations that she had with the alien that she agreed, the alien was referred to as a she agreed to learn. So they brought all these books and she learned. The alien just went page by page, very advanced intelligence, and read everything and then learned to say, could actually use the mouth to speak. Now, Matilda McElroy moves to Ireland in her elderly years. She is now sick, terminally ill. She decides to write this letter to this investigative reporter, journalist, ufologist, and he verified her credentials. He flew out to Ireland to meet her and all of that. And she gave it to him and just said, I don't want anything. Just use these. And boys, you guys got to find it. It's on YouTube. Alien interview, Matilda McElroy.
Let's go back to the Eben.
Yes.
So there was a mission that this Eben wanted to accomplish, which
Yes.
was to go back home.
Yes.
And I believe there was a meetup where her people did come to pick her up and there was an exchange.
The Eben repaired the communications device from the ship. Through Matilda's help, she communicated to our authorities, I need to, because they said, are there more like you? Are they going to come looking for you? And he said, yes, they do know where I am, but I do need to contact them. What happened then was of course, the government kind of was on alert, like, what do we do? Can we trust them? Is it going to be an alien invasion? What's going to happen? They invited, by the way, many people to come and try and talk to the Eben.
Was this during Eisenhower?
I believe it is during
I think it was.
Roosevelt?
No.
I can't. I could look it up.
I think it was Eisenhower.
If I had my phone, I could look it up. Okay. So they brought they brought psychics even to talk. Matilda says there was a man named Krishnamurti who came.
Krishnamurti.
J. Krishnamurti was one of the most popular spiritual teachers from India, and she says he came. He was brought there. Okay. So you asked me about the exchange. So then here, listen what happens. They work it out that the rescue to come and take this Eben back to their planet, the scout ship came back to get their fellow, comrade, and they worked it out that, okay, we will do an exchange. We want a cultural exchange to happen. We want to send some of our men to where you're from. Is this possible? Ended up being all worked out that this was going to happen. It did happen.
Which was Close Encounters.
Which is shown in Close Encounters.
Right.
It's not, no one knows really that it's shown, but you can look at the very last scene in Close Encounters when the giant mothership lands at the Air Force Base. They don't focus the camera on this. They're focusing on one scene, but they put it in the movie where you see these about 10 of our guys going onto the ship with like cases. So this happened. We sent a team to their planet. There was an exchange. This was only supposed to be for, I think, 3 years. Ended up being like 9 years because it couldn't tell what time it was on that planet. So this case is called Serpo, S-E-R-P-O. There is a book called Journey to Serpo, which you can buy on Amazon.
I love this story.
Which details our exchange program that happened. So they put this in Close Encounters because Close Encounters, that last scene did happen in reality. That happened at Holloman Air Force Base. And you can look up the Holloman Air Force Base incident.
Yeah.
So
that was incredible. That whole time period was absolutely incredible. And then the cover-up started. And then they got rid of ATIP, I believe. They got rid of Project Blue Book, and then they started ATIP somewhere much later. I think in the 80s they started ATIP. But there's various forms of these the organizations within the government that they change the name, they bury them under different names. I mean, we are of the opinion, and this is like going into what some people call conspiracy theories. So we're not going to go too much into it because I don't know how YouTube feels about that, and I don't know if we get like monetized or not, or whatever, like advertised if we talk about it, but because we're still learning how it works. But I forgot what I was saying now.
Well, the point is that it's getting so huge about what to believe. Okay, let's jump to the present.
I remember. I was talking about aliens working with our government at the highest levels.
You want me to talk about that? Okay.
Just a little bit. Don't go too much into it because I still need to research online to see how much we're allowed to talk about on YouTube. Because I know there's all these new rules.
I don't think with aliens, people don't care.
Okay.
Because there's so many things about aliens, right?
Okay.
So, of course, they have an interest in our planet. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Because our planet is doing a lot of stuff with nuclear energy.
Right.
Okay, and
Which
they want to
will
make sure that
affect-
we are a safe kid to have on the block.
Because it affects, even though we're way out in the boondocks of the galaxies, it does ripple out and affect all the planets and their ecosystems.
Yes.
And they have talked about that. and
Absolutely.
channeled that. Yeah.
I've channeled that. Other channels have, I think, mentioned some of this, one or two over the last 50 years. That maybe there's only one or two other channelers who have talked about this. Also, the whistleblowers have talked about it. I can go on and on about all the incidences that
they've shut down nuclear plants.
that they've shut down nuclear silos. If you find Captain Robert Salas, Salas, look up Robert Salas. He was basically the boss, the man in charge in the military at where we had 11 nuclear missile silos. And when you research, guys, Google his name. The UFO showed up 2 nights in a row, hovered over the nuclear missile silos our own governments used to protect our country, and shut down
And there's like
9
4
of those missiles, rendered them useless. No
Now,
one knows how.
you
It shot a beam into it.
And you cannot shut down these missiles.
No, how are you going to shut it down?
You can't shut it down because there was like a system
Yes.
of like 5 different steps, including calling 2 different forms of
course,
higher officials that have to give the green light. So there's all these systems in place.
Shut them down one after the other with a beam of light.
And the security guard, who I would love to, if I don't think he's alive, but I mean to interview the security guard who saw the ships fly directly into the base and really low. And I think there was some security guards in the trucks also, but they saw the
2 red lights went right over and hovered.
Really at close range.
At close range.
And then that's when it happened.
Yeah. And so you have these high-level military men, good old boys, trained to protect and serve our country, who have come out as older men who have lived through it all. And I believe it's their actual patriotism to shed light where there's been darkness over the American people, therefore also the world, and about this really happened. It is a way of serving their country. They kept it silent. Now they can't. They're going to leave this earth, right? And they want to leave this information behind so that we know we're not alone. They don't care anymore about repercussions from the powers that be about what's going to happen to them if they divulge this information.
So other countries are more open to divulging information.
Mexico is very open.
And France
is, France is,
and I think Australia.
Canada. Now, here's something interesting about Canada. Paul Hellyer. Look him up. Hellyer. Hellyer. He was, I believe, the Secretary of Defense in Canada, has come out and said to the public, it's on video, on YouTube, so check it out. Paul Hellyer has said that there is a galactic federation.
Which they have corrected us during your channeling.
Well, let's talk, yes.
They call themselves the Federation.
Yes.
We call them the Galactic Federation. The aliens themselves have said it's just called the Federation.
Okay.
Okay.
So the Galactic Federation, Paul Hellyer, official of the Canadian government, said this is true. There are over 72 different races of beings that have been visiting the planet Earth, interacting with us and many of our governments. He's still alive. He's still saying it. Now, the Israeli former head of their national defense. Look it up, everyone. About 4 years ago, interesting, pandemic, 2020, okay, another
Distraction.
came out and said the same thing. So you're telling me that Canada, the head of defense for Canada, and the head of defense for Israel, they don't play around, okay? The Israelis don't play. He's saying that there's a galactic federation of alien races?
Why is that not on the front page?
Okay, guys, why is that not on the front page?
Yeah.
But instead we got to hear about,
all the stuff.
name all the names,
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
of the so-called influencers and so-called stars, right? Mm-hmm. Well, why don't we talk about the real stars in the sky and star systems and star beings, okay? Mm-hmm. So this has been going on right under our noses, hidden in plain sight.
Until the recent
Senate hearings. And you're going to say that. Okay. Much props to David Grush.
Yep.
And
fantastic.
And the amazing Air Force
So
pilot that
amazing.
is standing with
His
him,
testimony.
Mr. George Knapp, who's been spearheading and championing this, along with many other legends that we could go into who have been working for the cause.
Who's that current guy with the beard? I forget. The young guy.
The young guy.
The one that he was sitting next to.
Elizondo.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have these amazing people who have been fighting the good fight to get this information out there. There have been Senate hearings, guys. Check this out also on YouTube. The Senate hearings are there. The Senate hearings on UAP phenomenon. Let's talk about the most unbelievable conversation that has happened in the history of human beings. Are you ready?
And what's the percentage of people that showed up for the Senate hearings in the Senate?
Like 2.7 people showed up.
And why do you think that is?
Oh, because they were told not to show up.
And why is that?
Because this is not to be taken seriously, even though we can't avoid bringing it here into Congress because we have to do disclosure over time and desensitization. But, okay, let's just try to keep it low-key.
But the update is they did open a separate brand new division that they're going to fund for people who have had experiences in the military, et cetera, that they can bring their witnesses and their experiences and have it be documented and start the research process. Which is a little too late, but it's okay. And by the way, they probably have more not public, black, secret.
This is the tip of the iceberg. Are you kidding me?
That was it was so weird.
If we've had disclosures and whistleblowers saying aliens are working with the government for the last 50 years,
right,
that our guys have gone overseas, that we already have had a space force for the past 50 years. We have been in other galaxies.
Tunnels underneath the entire country.
Everything. We already know the bases on the moon, and we know the bases on the moons of Jupiter, and we know all this stuff, and we've been to the other planets. That's what's going on in the real iceberg. The tip is, is that light that was in the sky in Arizona? We can't identify it. We don't know if it's an alien, but we can't identify it. That's the disclosure we're doing now. Mm-hmm. But except there's this, what I just called a minute ago, as the most important human exchange of conversation happened just a few months ago, and you can watch it on C-SPAN on YouTube. What was that conversation? I shall enact it for you. You ready? Mm-hmm. Okay. Senate hearing is happening, everybody. David Grush, who is the whistleblower, been working in the government and on these top secret projects, verified for a long time. Now he's legit enough to be in front of a specific special Senate hearing for all of them to hear what he has to say. He's already given them all the documentation. There, right next to him is a decorated Air Force pilot who was part of what was called the Nimitz Incident, Nimitz, Nimitz Incident, which was sparked the New York Times article where they saw a tic-tac shaped UFO.
Correct.
4 of our best pilots observed this thing for at least 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It was above the water.
Longer,
it's about 100 miles off the coast of Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. And it was zipping above the water, creating foam. It's a tic-tac, no windows, no seams, no sign of propulsion. And it went from here to 70 miles away in 1 second. Mm-hmm. In 1 second. Mm-hmm. Then they came out and showed the videos of this,
correct,
which we all can watch.
Right.
There's 3 major videos that the Pentagon has confirmed.
To reenact.
I'm not going to forget. Part of this reenactment has to do with this. The videos have been released. Mm-hmm. One of the videos is a tic-tac video. The other video is an actual disc flying against the wind going like 2,000 miles an hour. And the pilot's observing and going, woohoo, check it out. What the hell is that? The third video are pyramid-shaped objects. I don't want to yell in the mic, so I'll go here. Pyramid-shaped objects floating above U.S. Navy ships. Many of them. There's video of this shot by Navy officers on the deck of the ship looking up. All right. They weren't quinceañera balloons, I'll tell you that much.
That's right.
Okay.
Or weather balloons.
Of course not. They're
So
solid
reenact
pyramid
for
shapes.
us.
Okay, so we were at the Senate hearings. Here's the pilot. Here's David Grush. And the government official says, I've noticed in these reports, you're saying, Mr. Grush, that we have retrieved ships of unknown origin? And David Grush says, yes, that's true. These ships were of like extraterrestrial origin. That is what we have come to know. She goes, well, if they're ships, are you saying we have these ships in our possession? Yes, I am. But with ships, there's usually pilots. Were there pilots in these ships? Yes, there were. And she goes, were these pilots human or non-human? David Grush leans forward without any hesitation and goes, non-human. All these microphones should fall to the floor right now.
And there should be silence going across the planet.
Across the planet.
There should be a moment of silence where all human beings have reverence.
Planes should have stopped in midair.
Exactly.
Television screens should have frozen. Cats should have stopped mid-meow. Okay? And we went, what did you just say under oath with credentials in front of the U.S. government?
The people sitting next to him, the two
are just like this.
And
they're like gangsters. They're like, yep.
And by the way, their credentials are even more, and
Yes.
they were agreeing.
Yes. So he just said that there were non-human pilots recovered in extraterrestrial craft, and by the way, he went on to say we have more than 12.
Look, I think the whole thing was just for public disclosure, but I really think that this was like a show. This was like almost like the Senate was doing because they have to, and the people who did choose to come.
What do you mean a show?
A show for us, the public.
But no one is even talking about it.
I know, but they had to just do it because of the pressure from the public. They have
well,
to
of course, they eventually have to.
They have to do
right.
it. But there's so much more to this conversation. They're just going to give us just the breadcrumbs. They're just going to give us a few.
Guys, what you're seeing right now is the breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
But if the breadcrumbs are an official saying we have ships and there are non-human pilots' bodies we have recovered, that's a hell of a breadcrumb.
But there's something that's really interesting.
If that's the breadcrumb, what is the loaf of bread?
That is not what I was referring to. I was referring to the Senate is the one that's appeasing the public. Those chairs were empty. There was only a few people there.
There was only like 15 senators there.
So there's more to the picture that they're not saying. One is, why wasn't all those chairs filled? Mm-hmm. Two, what do they know? Three, why are they disclosing it that way?
Yeah, you do a hearing on whether TikTok is dangerous, and you'll be a packed house with 100 cameramen there, right. All the senators and their mothers there for a TikTok, a private
TikTok. So it's kind of confusing. Use a different example.
So. You know how the social medias are under fire now. You know, like, it's social media's fault that people are killing themselves or whatever it is that they're doing is because of social media, and that they should be more responsible, which is, to me, ludicrous. You know, it's a private company offering you a service. You don't have to be on it. Anyway, the point is we will have the House packed with news organizations and every senator and their mother there. Mm-hmm. But you do the biggest story in the history of humanity, which is We Are Not Alone, with actual facts now, not the people you made fun of for the last 50 years of, they're just hick farmers that are seeing little lights in the sky and they don't know anything. And they brushed off these good people, these hardworking, good, honest people from all over the country that they have been saying are crazy or liars or just dumb.
Does YouTube have fact check blocks or some sort of like banner that says
only when it comes to like certain I would say illnesses and medical advice and things, but with as far as UFOs, they don't even take this seriously enough because you can find so much. You can find people who are say, "I am a reptilian alien talking to you right now."
That's true.
So you can anything about UFOs is fine. It's because, well, I don't know what it's because. What I really want to say is that this topic is still, even with being on C-SPAN, being all over YouTube, being in the New York Times, it's just beginning to kind of enter into the intoxicated blur that people who don't believe in these things are walking around in. No offense, but hello, this has been. You don't always have to have the so-called authorities tell you that it's real. Sometimes you can see, just like this video we watched earlier, from how long ago.
So let me ask you a question. I'm going to set up a scene for you.
Yeah.
And then I think we should wrap up.
Okay.
So here's the scene. The military shows up. The press shows up. They're on the White House lawn.
The aliens?
The military and the press are on the White House lawn.
Okay.
Okay. They're in a big circle. They're protecting the whole White House. Mm-hmm. And then a ship descends. Mm-hmm. It's all caught on camera by thousands of reporters.
Yeah.
Okay. That were invited.
Mm-hmm.
A ship lands. Actual blue aliens, avians, whichever species, Palladians, come out of the ship.
Yeah.
Government officials meet them.
Yeah.
On the front lawn.
Yeah.
For the world to see.
Yeah.
To do a public disclosure.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes.
Do you think that the population, the majority of the population, or what percentage of the population, do you think they're going to believe that this is real?
I believe that over 50% will believe that it's a hoax.
AI news.
That it's AI news. 50% will believe that it's AI generated. 50% will believe that these are actors. 50% will believe that that's just our technology and actors are dressed up as aliens.
Okay, so let me ask you another question based on that. Okay, so let's say that happens, right?
Yeah.
So then let's say the government goes, oh, you guys don't believe it. Mm-hmm. So let's do a meet and greet. We're going to get the top press, right? The top press reporters to come and sit in the round table room or whatever. Mm-hmm. And they sit and have a conversation.
That would be good.
That's one.
Meaning, so we actually get to ask the aliens questions.
Yes, that's one. And two is they can bring with them on the ship something already dead, like something that's dissected, so that they can study. So whether it's a plant or an animal or whatever it is from their solar system, from their galaxy, and then they take it to the top scientists in the world, and they can do research in the DNA and to learn
and prove that's from somewhere else.
To prove, so
that's
we have
beautiful.
All this proof.
But
do you think then the people of the planet will believe?
I believe that you'll get more people, but I believe that there's going to be a certain percentage of the people that it doesn't matter if an alien lives with them for a month and says, I'm going to share this apartment with you now. They will still think either they're hallucinating and that somebody injected them with some chemical.
Really funny you said that, because there is a lot of hybrid aliens that are living here. So that is an actually true statement.
Okay.
And we can't recognize them, and they're shapeshifters, and you don't really know.
Right. So some will say...
I know this is a really intense video for some of you who are being introduced to these topics for the first time. We may lose some people. We may gain some people. We don't know. We don't know what YouTube's going to do. So this is all just an experiment. But it was really important that we brought this to you because this is a topic that we are very close to. I've had my own personal experiences. I wrote a book on it. I have videos up.
Right.
I have testimonials. I've been on podcasts sharing my story. And then also Riz has had his deep story. My dad was strangely into it growing up. Turns out that my grandfather, his father, worked at Lockheed Martin. So we don't know all the lines here, but very interesting. We also don't know how much, none of us really know how much we're visited at night and have no memory of being on a ship or anything. You would have to have hypnotherapy to find out actually.
Well, I'm gonna drop it on this note. Philip Corso, who wrote the book Day After Roswell, which I recommended everyone to read. Everyone should read that book. He said, take some of the weirdest things that you have heard, the UFO stories that you have heard, where you go, that can't be. He goes, it's even stranger than that. You haven't even heard the strangest stuff yet that is true. So,
yeah.
On that note, there will be more.
Yeah, we have a lot more to go on this topic. And I will say before we leave, there's a lot of people who are really interested and want to learn how to communicate with extraterrestrials. So we created a retreat in Joshua Tree called Contact. And, they have Contact in the Desert, which is an expo. We're going to do the real Contact in the desert. And this retreat is 3 days. It takes place, we're going to be doing it at night, where we're going to be under the stars, where you can see galaxies. You're going to see everything. There's no lights for miles.
Yep.
And we're going to have our equipment, and we're going to have an opportunity to
channel. I'll be channeling
We're also
the transmissions.
going to teach you how, and I can teach you how to meditate and how to telecommunicate
And
with
call them
aliens
in.
and call them in.
Yeah, so you
And
can see them in the
also
sky.
get messages from them, because I do that all the time. I've done that. I've taught a lot of people how to do it. So we go really deep with this conversation. If you're interested, go to our website at rizmirza.com and look under Sacred Earth Retreats and look under Contact if you're interested in joining us. We have a couple spots left. It's a small group, and it's going to be really one of a kind, and we're really excited to do it.
Yeah, I'm so looking forward to it. And I channel, as you guys know, my new book, The Echelon Speak, which is an interdimensional.
showed it.
Sure, I'll show it again, guys. You guys can get this on Amazon. It's super reasonably priced. And it is a direct.
You just sounded like Gene Simmons right there.
I did. It is a direct transcript of the transmission of these interdimensional beings.
Yeah.
And we will go deeper with that group of alien beings on our retreat. So check out all the information that's here in the description. And we'd love to hear your thoughts, comments, and suggestions. As always, keep it magical, keep it mystical. Metamystic Podcast. Share it with your friends, guys.
And share it with your friends and leave comments, and we'll see y'all later. Thanks for joining us.